Okay, hi everyone. Unite to Ignite is back with another interview. I'm here with my friend Jamal. Jamal, say hi.
Hello.
How are
How are
you today?
I am well. How about
Ready
you?
to I'm doing well. I had a busy day, but I'm feeling good. I feel great. Had some caffeine. I had to. I was like, I need caffeine.
A
So
lifesaver for some.
yes, I usually don't take caffeine because I turn into like a ninja and start kicking walls and doing crazy things. But I was
I
like, I need
understand.
it for today.
No, actually avoid caffeine because back when I used to be like a social worker and I was like metroing to work, it was like my first job and I started drinking caffeine in the morning to like prepare for the commute. It was bad. Everyone was too close. Everything smelled too bad. And I just wanted to like push
Oh,
people.
your senses were heightened.
It was heightened and I was just angsty and commuting is bad in DC. So I
I
didn't.
couldn't imagine being like on caffeine and being a social worker and dealing with people. Like I couldn't imagine. I would be kind of out there. How was it? How was it working as a social worker?
Well, it was actually like my first job was like an internship in social work in foster care. So
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
I mean, I doing that is what just made me want to commit to like getting a degree in psychology, but it was enough to make me realize that like the social system is broken and that I don't want to be a social worker by itself.
Okay, so what would be your ideal like career for what you want to do?
I've actually been trying to refigure that out since my life kind of imploded. Um, I know that I teach currently. I'm a special ed teacher by trade. That's what I love doing. And I love like working with kids, people, adults, what have you. But I think what I'm invested in now more than anything else is like the concept of school culture, the idea of like safe spaces in a classroom, not so much to like, you can't trigger anybody. And it's more like you have to get triggered and like cope with that triggering. And I think that's where people like get disconnected. So like I'm finishing my master's in special education, but I actually intend to get like another degree in social work and conflict resolution. So I'm trying
Awesome.
to see if I can make those things work. I haven't really figured out the career plan. I just know that like for I normally work with kids with like emotional behavior disorders. So I want to create spaces where like kids can process whatever trauma that is causing those intense reactions rather than just saying that like they got to deal with it or putting them in restraint when they start getting like too, you know, intense.
Yeah, it sounds like you kind of want to battle their home life because the school system is pretty bad for some kids as well as kind of brushing them off emotion wise.
Mhm.
But a lot of kids, their home life, they go through the same thing. They go to school and the teachers are kind of like, I'm too busy, I'm hectic right now. And then they go home and the parents are in the same exact boat. So nobody really has that one-on-one interaction that they deserve, especially as a kid growing up. So
Right.
and when you talked about school culture, that's right up my alley because I actually homeschool, to
Ah.
avoid what the school culture is right now.
Right. No, it's bad. It's bad. And there's like actually like school trauma that happens. Like kids come to school, some other child may be experiencing some variant of like PTSD, what have you, and they start flipping chairs or like biting people. And then that kid is now like vicariously traumatized just from like experiencing that. Or the teachers don't know how to cope with a child going through that stuff. So they may become volatile themselves. And I've had like situations where I had like AIDS actually like chokehold one of my kids that I was working with. So it was like
What?
there's a lot of stuff. There was a lot of things that are going on inside the schools because no one knows how to deal with intense emotions. And it's obviously something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, when teachers go in for training, is that something that they go through? Is that a criteria that they learn to deal with like stress management, dealing with kids, how to be hands-on with a kid that's kind of physical? Is that something that they're taught?
No. And the only reason I know about it, because my background, again, was my degree was in psychology. I wanted to work with quote unquote bad kids. So I found myself working with a lot of kids with like behavior disorders. And
Mm-hmm.
again, my background was like foster care. So the whole notion of like back home trauma was normal to me. So I started working in my first school that I ever actually taught in was an alternative school, like a level 5 behavior school. And
Wow.
because you work in a behavior school, you have to get trained. So I learned what they call TAC2, which is like therapeutic approach to crisis management, something like that. And so I have to learn how to like secure a child when they're in the middle of like going through a huge tantrum or rather a violent tirade rather. And so I learned how to do like restraints and like therapeutic responses, but that was my specialty. So that's something
Right.
I more or less willingly went into.
Mm-hmm.
General ed teachers do not have that training. They aren't essentially required to. And even if they did, PD is usually such a joke that it doesn't really touch on that like heavy stuff.
So do schools require them to have a specialist? Like, because there are moments when anything can happen. So are there specialists on school property? Maybe like five or something just there, just in case somebody needs to call them since the teachers aren't qualified.
It depends on what you consider a specialist, and it usually depends on like how intense the needs are. Like I actually reported one of my old schools because they had like no system for any support, and kids are just running rampant in the hallways like all day, every day.
Yeah.
But they never officially developed a wellness team until like the year after I reported them, and then they finally got one, but it's not even like fully cohesive. And
You
then
know what would be cool?
yeah.
If you could, I don't know how, but I just got the idea if you can go into schools and kind of like, I don't know, critique them, I guess. I think, having the experience of seeing something wrong and reporting it and then seeing change from that report, that just sparked the idea that I think a lot more schools, they need to know that they're not doing good, which I think they know. I think they know. I think a lot of people are just there for their check. So they're not concerned about, child safety and school development and not even educating in a certain manner, to their full extent. So I think if you could just walk around, like even if you just got like a visitor's pass, if you could be like a school spy, that would be awesome.
I mean,
That's
that could work honestly, because I think what could happen. All right, the reason I'm trying to get my master's in social work with like that conflict resolution degree is
Mhm.
like as a teacher, my limitations are almost exclusively encompassing of academics. That
Yeah,
is the primary name of the job.
you can stay there.
And even though after doing my whole foster care like internship thing, like I didn't want to go into social work by itself, but the type of work that needs to happen inside schools do come from individuals who have like a social work background. So maybe, and I had teased the idea before of like doing like a behavior consultant like position that, but I knew you would need credibility, hence why like that other degree would probably be useful. But yeah, I need some clout on my name, so to speak, before I
I
actually.
can totally agree with that. Maybe you can meet with individual families struggling with their child and not really understanding how to process their emotions, or I don't want to say control, because you shouldn't necessarily control your children, but
Right.
they don't know how to parent correctly, whether it be it just time or no, they don't have the experience. Maybe you could do something like that and then your name would get out and boom, this has turned into a life coach session. So I'm like, wait a minute, I'm talking about future career ideas and what you could do. You could be a spy in school. So that's just kind of what I do when I life coach. But let's get back to you.
Okay.
We could talk forever about all the possibilities I could see, future wise. But let's get back to you. So you've been working in social work. When you were younger, did you envision helping kids? What sparked that interest? Can you think of like a specific interaction in your life that was like, wow, that's not right, or wow, I can really do something to help change this?
Um, Normally when people ask me that interview question, I always say like both my parents were teachers, but that's not actually the reason I got into teaching. It's actually because they were both teachers. I didn't want to go into teaching or any of that.
We all
Which
have the rebellious spirit.
wasn't even rebellious. It was like my mom went through like a whole series of dramas in the various schools she's taught at. She's had like school closures happen. She's had like a series of principals hired, get fired. One
Wow.
principal tried to actually get her fired, which he was thankfully fired before that school
Wow.
closed anyway. So he ended up
Yeah.
having to go to another school. And then because she was already dealing with like her breast cancer, she was just like retired from like medical leave
Aw.
early. It was like a lot. And so like that observatory trauma, so to speak, was
So
like
you seen the stress and you
yes.
was like, I need to take this on.
not, not at all. Not
That's what I
not
got.
at
I've seen it. It was so stressful. And I'm like, yes, this is what I need to do. This is for
all.
me.
No. Like I said, I am actually the first thing I wanted to do was just be like a writer, and namely like a writer for like I guess self healing, so to speak.
Okay. That's awesome.
I was working on this genre I was gonna call like philosophiction. I don't know if that's ever going to stick, but it was like this notion of like I'm writing these like philosophical like stories that can be applied to people's lives. That's kind of like you pull out what you can to apply these different methodologies to your life. But I was like, it's going to be forever before I become a famous writer, so I should at least get a degree in like teaching English because I know that, and then psychology. But eventually just became psychology, finished that degree, and working with kids, I guess it just kind of clicked that way.
Okay, so what was the genre? Say it again. Philosophiction?
Philosophiction, yeah.
I like it. It kind of sounds like a dinosaur. Philosophiction. I think if you did, back to life coaching, if you did do it, it would help a lot of children and teenagers because they wouldn't have to necessarily experience the things you were writing about because they experience it through your writing. So
Right.
it can be used as a tool to prepare people for certain situations that they'll experience in life through your experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a really good idea.
Hmm.
Actually, I'm all for it. Philosophiction. I'm looking for it. When I go to Barnes and Noble, I'm like, where's the philosophiction section? Where is it? You guys are late. Like it's 2020. This is definitely a thing already.
Okay.
So it's cool. And as far as like, I see a lot of another life coach thing. You're always like, I'm gonna get a degree in that for the credibility.
Mm.
Like if you are good at what you do and you seem passionate about children, which I know a lot of people who are not. I worked as a teacher, I worked in daycare, you know, I'm a nanny now.
Mm.
You seem passionate about it. I think your passion will step up and speak for you.
Mm.
You know, if you want change, I think you should act on it immediately and if you want the degree, let the degree come. But I
Mm.
think you should act on it because a lot of people really need that. A passionate person who's genuinely, you know, not for self, not looking for self gain, but looking to make a change in a system that's clearly corrupted.
Mm.
So I definitely think, you know, you could do that. Philosophiction and change in the school culture. Two things that I think you should go for.
Yeah, and I would love to just do those things. And I'm trying to get to a point where I can just like plan to do those things. And I think part of it is just like the
Finding
stress of like developing these independently and just like setting that structure up. And I
yeah,
think that's
it's all
part of
about
it.
structure and discipline as well. Like if you want to do something and you know we have bills to pay, we
Mhm.
have to do what we have to do. And then we also have to do what we want to do.
Mhm.
So it's like 12-hour days of
Right.
working and coming home and grinding on our dreams as well. But it's definitely possible.
Mm.
Definitely possible. So those are some things. If you need help, just contact me afterwards. Like I will definitely help set up some type of plan, hold you accountable. A lot of people just need somebody to hold them accountable.
That's so true.
Yeah. So, all right. So I know you didn't grow up in DC, Maryland. That's where you are now, right?
Yes.
But you are not from here.
No.
Where are you from?
I am originally from Arkansas.
An Arkansas native. Wow.
I don't even know if I can say native because I was born on a base. It's just both my mother and father were from Arkansas. They met in Arkansas. They went to Germany when I was born, and they came back when I was a kid.
So you are from Germany, and then you were born in Germany, then you moved to Arkansas.
Yeah.
Plot
But again,
twist.
that's where my parents came from. So that's like several generations of Arkansans flow.
What is it called?
No, it's like so Arkansans. I'm just the general term for us. But I remember seeing my granddad's like military recruitment card. He's like from Muddy Waters, Arkansas. So it's like several generations
So you have
of
a
Arkansas.
rich genealogy in Arkansas.
Yeah,
A family of Arkansans.
yeah.
That's a new word too. Philosophiction, Arkansans. Like we are building our vocabulary today with you. Thank you so much, Jamal. We appreciate it. All right. So tell me, like, how was it growing up in Arkansas?
The racist for one.
Really?
Yes, I mean if you're
Wow.
surprised, I'm
So totally
like,
different from coming to Chocolate City. It's not
yeah,
Chocolate City anymore, I'll tell you that.
sure.
It's not Chocolate City anymore, but it's definitely a bigger, you know, African American population here.
Hmm.
So, did you experience any racism while growing up?
I mean, yeah, there was varying levels of racism. There was this annual practical joke that they used to put like nooses in trees. I forgot what the entire reason for it, but that was just something they did as like a yearly thing.
You're
There was
gonna
that.
make me cry.
That was just one instance. That was just one
Oh my
memory.
god, okay, we'll skip the subject. Oh, I hate it. Okay. I'm tearing up instantly. Like music, oh my gosh. Darn Arkansans. I thought you guys were cooler than that. So
Did
so
you?
can you tell us like your earliest memory? Like as far as you can. What was your first memory?
Uh, First memory. Honestly, don't know what my first memory was.
So when I think of Arkansas, I think of like farms. I don't think of big cities.
Yeah, no, that's very valid.
Okay. I was like, I don't want to be I don't want to stereotype it, but that's what I think of. So how was it growing up there?
um, so Arkansas is for the most part like it's in farmers territory. It's a very agricultural like state. There, I was close enough to the city that I at least had access to like Little Rock, which is our capital and everything. I was in North Little Rock, which is like all over the
Oh.
Mississippi River and everything. But my granddad and pops and them, they had a farm, so I would very frequently go out to Arkadelphia, be on my granddad's farm. We'd be like,
Arkadelphia.
yeah, Arkadelphia, Arkansas, and Pine Bluff, Arkansas.
Arkadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
That is something. Like Philadelphia, but with Arkansas in front of it. Arkadelphia. Okay. So you grew up, you experienced the farm life.
Yeah, like we would sometimes go out to Granddad's farm and we'd be helping with the chores, whether it be like we wiring the fences, feeding the cows, or like baling all that stuff.
That is my dream. Like I would have loved to grow up in the country. I would have loved it. I feel like I would have loved it, but then I don't like bugs. So that wouldn't work. Like I don't like bugs. I don't like spiders. I don't like feeling itchy. I really don't like being too hot or sweating. So I don't know. But I love animals. I love
Okay.
animals.
Okay.
So were there horses?
No, Granddad's farm, he had cattle. He used to have a chicken coop, and I think there was like, well, he also had like actual like fruit trees and bushes and stuff like that. So that was most of the things that he produced. He had like,
Aw, so you kind of got to eat off the land.
yeah, he had like a peach tree. He had like a blackberry bush and like one other form of like fruit. Like I said, I was too young when they had the chicken coop, and I think they got rid of it as I like started to remember things. But I remember the cows, and the cows are still there.
He still has it.
Well, it's in the family still. He passed, and my uncle is pretty much like the land tender, while my father manages like the finances of the whole situation.
That's cool. Do you go back and visit?
It is on my to-do list because I honestly do want to reconnect more with like my history, and I realized how much of that history I had like not really processed when I was there.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to go back and actually kind of like invest in that kind of childhood. Because I actually, when I went to my grandfather's funeral, they were talking about like, so here's a wild ass story. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss, but here's a story that I heard about like my granddad. Like, the reason he got the farm is like he used to be in the military. He was a chef. Prior to that, his family were like the last generation of like slaves or freed slaves. Like right as slavery was ending,
Yeah.
like in that and then that history.
Wow.
And like I remember as somebody at the funeral was saying, like his earliest memories was picking cotton with his family. And then when he got through the military, got out of the military, he was like, I'm gonna go back to picking cotton, but I'm gonna do it for myself. So
Okay.
he went to this bank, and the bank obviously didn't like assign a loan to him the first time because he's a black guy. But apparently he just went back and waited there day after day after day for like a week and a half. And the guy was like, all right, because you're here so much, I will give you the loan. So you can just go do what your own thing is. And when he finally did start the farm, he picked the cotton, he sold it, and then he like gave extra to the neighbors. So
Aw.
there's just like a lot of stuff I didn't know that like went into the farm that I used to go to. So part of me like wants to reconnect with that.
Yes, I think you should. And I think for everybody who's going to watch and for you yourself and for me,
Mm.
his persistence is
Mm.
admirable.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, he was a chef, and he came back again, trying to make a life for himself. Farming and cotton was a thing that he knew. So he ended up doing that. And
I think that's great. He took a skill that he already had and then he made it work for himself.
mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's great. He wasn't like, I'm not ever doing this again. He was like, I know how to do this, so I'm going to take it and own it and do it for myself. And then share with the neighbors.
Yeah, that's the part
Like,
that gets me every time. Because as a
yeah, like
parent,
that's
it's always been,
crazy. We know where you get your generosity from. Like, your parents are teachers,
yeah.
that's in you. And
Mm.
generosity from your wonderful, wonderful grandfather. How
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
I think you should go back and connect. I think our history is so important because it helps define us. I
Mm-hmm.
think some of us spend so much time running away from our past, running away from our parents, but once we actually get to sit and be in that area, we get to know new things about ourselves that we never knew. You know,
Mm-hmm.
even when I talk to people, I learn things. Learning about you reveals things inside of me that I didn't know was there. So it's a
Yeah.
great experience. I'm all about like ancestry, genealogy, finding out what's in your DNA. I want to go to Africa. That's on my
Mm-hmm.
to-do list. Find my tribe. Um, yeah, so enough about me. Okay. So Arkansans, a
Mm-hmm.
wonderful story about your grandfather. So what brought you out here? Was it school?
Not initially. Um, so like being in Arkansas doesn't exactly provide like the most titillating of like childhoods. Again, it was a very, I won't say it's like Texas where you have to drive everywhere, but it's kind of like that where if you don't have like a vehicle or some kind, you're not really getting around.
Yeah.
And there wasn't really like a lot of opportunity for that much in Arkansas either. So it's like you either join the military, pick up like automotive mechanics, or I don't know, I guess get pregnant. I don't know why it's always like a career option, but that seemed to be like
Well, you couldn't do the third thing.
I couldn't do the third thing, but it seems like that's just what the expectations are for people there. So I guess I
Yeah.
was gender line. But either way, I knew I didn't really want to be out there, and because I didn't have like that understanding of like generational importance to Arkansas, I thought it was like a punishment. Like being in the military, I at least had the opportunity to like travel and see different spaces. Going to Germany and coming back was like one of the bigger mind opening situations. And then having to come back in like third grade and like stay in Arkansas, I was like, oh no, I am trapped here. So my dad got stationed up by Pentagon at some point after their divorce, and he said like, when you graduate high school, you can come up here and live with me. And obviously, anything was better than Arkansas, so I took that as soon as I got the opportunity to.
So your parents split and your dad came up to DC.
Yeah, so father and mother, they were divorced like a while actually, but father, it was because of work. Dad has always been like a workaholic, and he's always going to travel, so to speak.
They
And
weren't working together because they were both in the military.
no, mom, she did like a semester of ROTC, and then she did not want to do that anymore.
Okay.
Father, he finished his math degree in like 3 years, and then he just went straight into enlist, or not enlist, but to get his programming stuff. I'm pretty sure he did actually go through like an actual ROTC program or something like to that effect, and he just stayed in it. And so they had stability because military money,
Yeah.
but it wasn't really like my mom's lifestyle.
Yeah. That wasn't their romance connection because he was gone.
Mhm.
Is he still working now?
Yes and no. He is not currently serving, but he is working as a civilian. So
Okay. Is that like a spy? What? Okay, so you have spy in
No.
you. Like that's what I was talking about. That's amazing. Okay, I knew
No.
it. I was like, you could be a spy. Boom.
It's not a spy. So it's like with the military, once you get to a certain point, you can retire from the military.
Okay.
Even though you're retired from like your contract years of service, you can still maintain a position within the military. So he is like an engineer. He works with the engineer corps. He was doing that for years on end. And so he retired, but he still maintained the work. So he
So
still
is he
worked.
like a contracted employee now?
No, he's still salary. I know him that much because he goes to work every day for extended periods of time throughout the day.
I know your mother is like, that man is still working.
Yes, actually. That is it's usually how she talks about him if we
Yeah,
talk about
that man is still working. She could have thugged it out because he has to retire soon.
I don't
uh,
know. Technically speaking, he did retire. He's still working.
he
It's like,
did
so,
retire. Yeah, he's just a workaholic. Wow.
yeah,
Got that from your grandfather.
he did. He's always. I think that's the other half of it because it's like he is always working, and he always seems to be in debt. But it's usually because he's paying off someone else's bills, and so that's why he continues has to work rather than just being retired.
So is he generous as well?
I suppose so. He paid
Could
for
we
like.
maybe say overly generous?
That's very possible. I remember my mom told me the story back when like airports didn't have like ridiculous security things and anybody could just walk in.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody like asked my dad for money for a plane ticket and he bought the whole plane ticket and sent that guy on his way. And that's
Wow.
apparently just what he does.
Wow. That's like really nice. That is really nice. Like it's rare you meet people who are so giving.
Yeah.
Has he always just been that way? Is it like a spirituality thing or he's just like the most generous guy you can run into?
I think that's legit just in that line, in that genealogy from my dad's side of the family. I think that's just how they are.
Wow. Just like mine is yours. Sharing is caring. That's amazing. It's very rare that you meet people who are givers. Because giving takes a lot of energy.
It does. And
Yeah,
it
it does. It's
causes problems. It's like if you're not.
very rare. All right, so we're coming up on 30 minutes. I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think.
You don't have a timer?
Hmm?
You
You
don't
said
have
I
a
need.
timer?
No, don't talk about that. Don't talk about that. It was like mid interview, and I was like, "Dang, I didn't put on the timer. Like, I didn't put it on. I usually put it on my phone and just have it sitting right here so I can see and keep track. But no, we're not going to talk about that. That's not what we're talking about. Like, so I think it's about 30 minutes. Is there anything, if you can say anything at all to people in the world, whether to motivate them, to inspire, to tell them off, anything you wanted to say, what would it be?
um, I guess know your boundaries. um, so yeah, I think because of how giving my family is, I didn't realize that like sometimes being so giving can be used against you. And I just got out of this like massively abusive relationship, like acknowledging whatever system they're going. I just kept making excuses for it, basically.
Yeah.
And like I have a therapist now, and I go to like support groups and everything. And realizing that like yes, giving is a great thing, but there should always be a limit that you have to set for yourself. Because no one's going to tell you like no, you've given too much. Because if somebody's taking, they're just going to keep taking.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So yeah, the support system definitely helps because they're kind of like that. What somebody said, looking at people through rose-colored glasses.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're in it, we don't really notice, what's going on. And I just said a few seconds ago, giving is tiring. It takes a lot of energy. If there's not reciprocity,
Mm.
if
It
I'm
doesn't have
giving and
to
not getting, then yeah. So
yeah.
totally. So know your boundaries. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you so much for meeting and talking with us. We appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Definitely look forward to talking to you again soon. I'm going to be commenting and hitting you up about all of those dreams I had for you. Definitely. But I thank you and look forward to seeing your video on YouTube.
Thanks. Looking forward to it.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.